But the best organizations, the leaders are looking to change their perspective on a regular basis. So they're open. There's a vulnerability that they're willing to show. They're not the answer woman or the answer man. And so they'll go into the organization and they're doing this in a spirit of constantly learning. And I really didn't understand that when I started back in those days at Beatrice and we were putting our effort together. I certainly thought it was more tools focused, and you got to get these tools and use these tools, and good stuff happens because the tools are good. I mean, and good things happen when you're using the tools. Um, but that whole idea of the transformation, I don't think most people appreciate the magnitude of improvement that's there. And in the best organizations, they're constantly striving to learn and push it further.
Hey everybody, I'm Elizabeth Swan.
And I'm Tracy O'Rourke, and we're from the Just in Time Cafe. Welcome to our podcast. At the cafe, we wrestle with tough questions, we talk to groundbreakers, we discuss great books, and we get insights from Lean Six Sigma leaders and practitioners who are making a difference in the world.
We let you in on helpful apps, we bring you the news, and we challenge the status quo so you can build your problem-solving muscles.
So Elizabeth, what is on the cafe menu today?
The delicious lineup, Miss Tracy. Today's highlight is our interview with Michael Bremer, the author who turned the humble Gemba Walk into an art form and picked up a Shingo Award along the way. For our book buzz, we crack open Michael Stanier's The Coaching Habit, because it's always the right time to celebrate saying less and asking more. And in our Q&A, we dig into the potholes people stumble into when conducting process walks, also known, per Michael Bremer and a lot of other people, as Gemba Walks. So we may not be walking, Tracy, but today's episode is still all about where you look, what you see, and how not to stumble over the obvious. So, shall we go?
That sounds great. Up next, it's Book Buzz.
Today's book is Michael Stanier's The Coaching Habit. Say less, ask more, and change the way you lead forever. And we had him at the cafe a few years back when he first published this book, but it's even more relevant now, so it deserves a deep dive. First off, he covered something that is one of the hardest things for a coach or mentor to do, myself included, which is to resist giving the answer. We feel pressure to have all the answers. We're wired to fix stuff and instead of listen a lot of the time. And I love that he pointed out that most advice, isn't that helpful anyway. And I remember a client, and she let me know that leadership had tried to dictate a solution to the staff a year before, I got involved with them and helped her, set up project teams and address the process issues together. And she said it didn't work a year ago, but watching the team come, what they came up with, she realized, it was kind of similar, but it was a better solution. But what was really great about it was that it got implemented and it worked, right? Because they had come up with it. And she said it was a huge lesson for many of the leadership involved, that the answers came from the team and they learned in the process. So I'm looking at, his book. And I go back to his 7 questions, right? I kind of love the simplicity of that book. And of course, the humor. He is hilarious. So back to the start of a coaching call, right? He's got this, what he calls a Kickstarter question. And he asks, what's on your mind? And I don't use that exactly. It's not really the way I talk, but reading it again makes me want to test it out. So how do you start, Tracy? Is there a wrong way to start one of these conversations?
I actually do use a very similar one. I tend to say, so what's going on with you? Or, how are things? And, if I feel like it's kind of superficial, I might ask something else like, what's on your mind? Just to kind of see where it leads. And I think that's always helpful. I also, it also depends. So for example, I recently had a group facilitate a piece of work that they hadn't done before, and we had a coaching right after that. And I always ask, so how do you think that went? How do you think that went? What did you like about what you did? What were some of the deltas? So I always tend to let them, like, I have a list of things that I put together, but I always want to know what they think. So I always kind of start there depending on what's going on and what the coaching is.
Yeah. Actually, that's a great point. I remember early on in my career working with a little consulting firm, and we do an event and then we get together and do a round robin. And he just said, everyone, let's just do your own postmortem. How'd you do? How'd you do? What did you think it went well? What did you think you want to improve on? So it was just, I remember thinking, how brilliant is that? Like, let the person tell, everyone else, this is what I did. This was great, but this I could do better.
Yeah.
And I like that. I'd like another question of his, the simplicity of, and what else, right? To leave the door open in a really simple way. There's stuff we all leave out, right? We're human, right? And so this simply, it just takes a slight opening. Of course, once you ask it, you have to pause, I think as I get older, my pauses are longer. I think it's also like almost like I'm a little more brazen. Like sometimes people don't answer. I'm like, I'm just going to wait you out. I know there's more. I got time. So, but you get the tail and it makes a huge difference. Like they neglected to mention maybe, nobody but them thinks that what they're working on is an issue. That's important, right? And they might have left it out. So you get to dig deeper. It keeps, in a way, it keeps you from settling for a first answer, or keeps them from settling for the first answer. It also can help everyone from jumping right into problem solving, right? So get more of the lay of the land. Do you ever use that? The kind of the and what else?
Yes,
question?
I actually, what's funny is when I use that question is when I realize I'm talking too much. And I'm like, I haven't heard this person speak for a minute. You know what? I need to like pause and go, so what else?
Wait a second. I've been talking for most of an hour. What? There's another person here. Just kidding.
Yeah. So that's my go-to for me to be quiet. Right. So I go, so what else is going on? And then they sometimes continue with that same thing, or they, change it to another topic. And because, I think it's like, to me, it's a reminder that it's not about me. Sometimes as a coach or expert, people feel like you're supposed to be doing all this talking. And when in reality, it's not about you. It's about the person. It's about, and I know that he has a quote in the book that talks about that. It's no longer about getting the task done or the problem solved. You're focused as a coach now on the person and the process that they're going through, the thought process or their, experiments. And that's what you're focused on. And so it just brings me back to, this is about them.
Yeah, that's great. That's a really good reminder. It's about them. So another question of his that I use all the time, what's your biggest challenge? And his wording is, what's the real challenge here for you? And I realize I've morphed that, to be my own verbiage. And I was like, well, I should revisit that. Like, is it worth changing the verbiage? I still think it is. And it's funny because I tried that just today, and the person started to give me the list of things they had to do next. So I had to come back and go, and which of those is the biggest challenge? Because I really do want to hear what is gnawing at them the most. And the other thing that gets me about this is I will have what I think is a full-on robust coaching call. We've gone over everything. And then at the end, I ask that. And they have a whole nother thing to tell me that I did that never came up. I'm like, how did this not come up? So anyway, what about you? What's your favorite question from the book?
Well, I can tell you one that bugs me. I'll tell you my favorite, but I'll also tell you one that bugs me. And it's what he calls the lazy question. How can I help? And, I think, and it's not, and again, it's about them, not me. I actually hate it when people ask me that, because I always say, no, there's nothing you need to do. I mean, not always, but I'm actually not good at asking for help in general. in my personal life, I think I'm better at it at work, but it's still one of those questions where I feel like it makes me uncomfortable sometimes. And so the bad part about that is I sort of am assuming that it makes other people feel the same, and that's not necessarily the truth. So that is a question that I struggle asking because I struggle with that question myself. But I would say that, he's got some great questions. And I think the most interesting is when I ask people, what is it you want out of this? So when they're struggling with something and they're like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what the path is to go forward. And I'm like, well, what is it you want? Like, what do you want to happen and why? And that sometimes people just don't think about that. They don't think about specifically what it is that they want as an outcome. So that's always been an interesting question to ask and sometimes surprises people.
Yeah. No, I think I just asked something like that. What do you want to come out of this? What does success look like? And I was very surprised by the answer. Like I just didn't see it going there, but it was really, really helpful. Yeah. So the other thing that he brings up is how much time it takes to coach. And, he's addressing the myth of people saying, well, I don't really have time to coach. Right. And that's something that I've gone through a transition on, right? That I thought I needed, at least a half an hour. And I find that if you ask the right questions, you can, for me, it's more like 15 minutes. He feels like you can do it in 10. And I'm thinking, okay, that's a little short, but I still feel like I get a ton. They get a ton. The conversation gets right to it, and you can get a lot of value in 15 minutes. So how about you? What's your rule of thumb about the time a coaching session should take? And and understanding there's all different kinds of coaching sessions.
Yeah, I really, really like the coaching while it's happening, right? So people are in the thick of things. They're trying to apply process improvement. They're trying to apply DMAIC. And then, there's this question that comes up. So I feel like, yes, there's targeted coaching sessions, but then there's also moments, a coaching moment, right? And I'm just going to share a quick story. So, I have two teenage boys, as you know, one of them is 22 and one of them is 17. And my older son, we went camping one year and he stayed up all night and drank some Malibu rum and threw up all the way home.
Oh, God.
And my younger son was in the car, unfortunately sitting next to him. And we get home and he goes, so Ricky, what did we learn here?
Wait a minute, Tristan said that?
That's to Ricky. He was like 14. Ricky was like, looked at him like, shut up.
Oh my God. But, that's beautiful.
It could have been, I always like to tell people, like I recognize tell mode, right? Like Tristan could have said, we shouldn't have done that and blah, 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 and start telling him everything. But he paused with a question. And to me, it's about them. It's about their response and their reaction. And I feel like tell mode is something that we kind of get caught up into. As a leader or supervisor, if you think about staff meetings, there's a lot of telling going on, often like updates or here's what we need to do. And, not a lot of engagement in terms of like, how do we get this done? What do you guys think? What do you think we should do to get this done? As opposed to, I've decided that we're going to do this and now go do it. It's really interesting.
Well, what's interesting about that is that to me, that tells me Tristan has learned to ask questions, and I suspect he learned that from you.
Maybe, but I will say that was actually one of my biggest lessons as a coach, because I actually think I do pretty good coaching people at work, coaching people in process improvement. But I kind of had a humbling moment with when my son my oldest son became a teenager, because I felt like I wasn't connecting with him and I didn't understand why. And then I would reflect, do some Hansei, and realize that I was in tell mode with him a lot. And I didn't adjust my approach to him. And I had to ask him better questions as opposed to telling him what I thought he should do.
Mm.
And some of the questions I came up with originally were not good. Like I'd be thinking in my head, I'm going to ask him, what was he thinking? Okay, no, that's not a coaching question,
No,
right? So I had to come up
no.
with better questions. And so that was humbling for me because you could be really good at coaching somebody, obviously, if you have skills to do that and you've had practice, and then you'd be fumble it completely in another application. So that was very humbling to me and made me really appreciate the difficulty that you can have with trying to become a coach in certain situations,
Certain situations. And you kind of, it comes full circle, I think, that this book, he's not a process improvement coach, right? He's just talking about coaching. So to apply this to any kind of coaching, including, coaching your kids. So I think that it's a really, to me, it was great revisiting the book. It's very elemental. I give it a thumbs up. What about you, Tracy?
Absolute thumbs up. Love this book.
I'm Elizabeth Swan, and you're listening to the Just in Time Cafe podcast. In a short while, you'll get to hear our interview with Michael Bremer, who has walked more shop floors than most of us have walked dogs, and he still finds something new to learn.
Up next is Q&A.
Today's question is, what are some potholes people stumble on when conducting process, also known as Gemba Walks? One that I see is people not including all the people they should, right? And then they've got people who might feel left out. They miss on crucial information, or the interviewers do. So you have to be sure to invite all the interviewees to walk the process, not just to be interviewed. So make sure you ensure representation from every function or group that works within the process. And what about you, Tracy? What do you see as the biggest issues? Because you're the one that actually has done a process walk module for Karen Martin's TKMG Academy. So I'm looking to you as the expert here, Tracy. What does the expert think?
Well, what's interesting is when they first start doing the Gemba walks, that's where the most mistakes happen. And then they learn, oh, I shouldn't have done that, or, oh, yeah, I get it now. And they still miss people, to your point. That's probably the one that happens the most is, oh, we forgot this whole department. Darn it. But I think, I started learning early on that when we helped people create a process walk, they haven't done one before, I was very adamant on getting the people's names specifically. Who are we going to interview? Because what I would find is they would just give me the name of the supervisor. Oh, that's Carolyn's area. Well, are we interviewing Carolyn? No. Well, who are we interviewing? Well, we have to ask Carolyn. Well, let's go ask her. So who's going to be interviewed? Because if I didn't do that, what would happen is on the day of the process walk, 20 minutes before we got there, Carolyn would go, Mike, you're going to be interviewed in 20 minutes. What? Right. And now they're just like blindsided, feeling defensive. And it was always, and I don't know, and for whatever reason, and then, again, we do like an orientation. So they weren't even part of the orientation. Carolyn was, right? And so they missed the actual person that is supposed to be participating because they literally did not decide because they hadn't thought about who's going to be there. So I kind of felt like this is completely avoidable if we just really think about in advance who's going to be there. Look at their schedules. So I felt like that was happening a lot more than it should. So that really was, so I started to become very focused on getting the people's names and creating a schedule of the interview and making sure that those people knew, because it was happening just too much. So that was probably the one that I really work towards minimizing as much as possible. What about you?
It just dawns on me. Can you give our listeners just an overview of a process walk / Gemba walk, just in case anybody has not experienced one or knows exactly how they go?
Yeah, well, we do have a class, and you probably should go take the training from the TKMG Academy for the process walk module that I created. But basically, it's going to Gemba is, go to where the work occurs. So you're actually walking a process. We usually walk it from start to finish, but sometimes people walk processes backwards, right? Upstream too. And you talk to people throughout the process, and those people that are being interviewed, they should also be walking the process. So it's the whole group of people walking together. And that's where the aha moments happen. And that's where I think people fumble it is they either, they don't go to all the interviews, or they don't have the people that you're interviewing do the walk. And so the whole point is to see the whole process and have an understanding of what the process really is right now. And because otherwise people don't know what the process is, and they want to make changes and they don't even know what the process is, and nobody's agreeing on what the process is. And I think it's even more important right now because, people go, well, I mean, it's not really a process you can go see. It's not on a plant floor. Those are very helpful, but it's still helpful to walk the process that is digital if possible, even if it means that you have to Zoom them, get them on Zoom or get them on Teams, and you have to talk to them and they're in the process. Okay, well, let me show you what I do when I get this stuff, because those processes typically are invisible, right? So we have to make the process visible, then we have to walk the process, and then we do it. Okay, so that's the explanation in a short period of time. And you can see that I'm very passionate about it.
I love your passion, and I love your plug for the course at Take KMG, because it is a good one. And so I think the other thing I see happening is, it is interviews, and people might not necessarily be used to doing that, right? You're going from process step to process step, and as you said, everyone's coming together, right? It's not a divide and conquer thing. You're going together, and you're anyone that was interviewed last, then they go get in the interview. But sometimes people feel a little bit interrogated, like they might feel like, whoa, what are these 6 people asking me all these questions? And they might be a little bit, it might also be a case of, what do? You do that? Why do you do that? I thought we were doing X. You know what I mean? It can get a little bit intimidating. So what happened? Do you see that, Tracy? Because I think there's ground rules for these things. And but I don't know. I don't know what happens for you when you see this.
Yes, that's a very important thing. And again, there's a lot of anxiety when they've never done it before, because if they've never done a process walk, you're trying to still understand the dynamics. You want to know how it's going to go. So I actually have to say that, there is some anxiety for me as a facilitator when they've never done one before. And I've never worked with them. Like, they're coming in and they're hiring me to help them facilitate a Gemba walk, kind of cold, if you will. So you miss a lot of the dynamics and the people relationships and those kinds of things. But when they are there, I'm very careful to watch the dynamics of the people and the way they're asking questions, right? So they always say that the most common answer is, well, we've always done it that way. Well, what did you ask them, right? So back to questions and how we ask questions. To your point, Elizabeth, they often say, well, why do you do that? You're going to get people to react defensively to that. Well, because we've always done it like that. Like, that's a defensive response, which means that you asked a question in a way that was sort of interrogative or that made them feel unsafe. And so I always if I hear people say, why do you do it that way? I tell them to rephrase the question to focus on the process. So I'll say, ask them, why is the process step designed that way? Or why is the process designed that way? Not why do you do it that way? Clearly you're doing it because that's what the process, I mean, not clearly, but they're doing it that way because that's what the process is. So just bypass that and ask them about, why is the process set up like that? What do you guys think?
It's making me remember what you wanted to ask, Ricky, which was, what were you thinking? Which is one of those judgment questions. So why do you do that is another judgment question, right? It's not, you're more expressing like so it's like rephrase it to actually be about curiosity as opposed to underlying a judgment statement.
Yeah. And I also feel like when you ask questions and you've got like a list of questions, don't just pepper them with 8 questions and not even acknowledge some of their answers,
Yeah.
right? So when you ask a question and they respond, give them something about that. Like, oh, I learned something. I didn't know that. Did you guys know that? Thank you for that. I mean, even just saying, well, thank you I didn't know that. Thank you.
Yeah.
And then like, go to the next question. Like but what most people do is they just run right to the next question, and it feels like they're on the witness stand.
Yeah.
So I think there's an art, if you will, a dialogue that really should be happening. It's not just firing questions at somebody.
Mm.
Nobody likes that,
No, true.
unless of course you're an attorney.
Don't bring attorneys on a Gemba Walk unless you're doing a Gemba
Right.
Walk at a lawyer's office. That's my final offer, Tracy.
Yeah. So, but I hands down, when I do the projects, when I teach at UCSD and we do Greenbelt, and I ask people what was their biggest takeaway, hands down, they say the Gemba Walk, the process walk was eye-opening, enlightening, and it's a good experience. Like I always tell people, if it wasn't a good experience, we didn't do it right, because it's not about getting people in trouble. It's about discovering what is it about the process that isn't working. And it's not, all the people that work in it are victims of however the process is designed. It's not the people. And, and if it is the people, that's a whole nother class and a whole nother, performance management, that's like separate. I'm not saying it's never the people. I'm just saying focus on the process first, because that's what we do. And a lot of times the process is confusing. There's a lot of process opportunities, we know. Target rich environments everywhere.
Everywhere. And as Deming said, there, obviously there's a people element. I think he had 85% of this is process, but there is people element, sure, but most of this is the process. And I think you've always been really good at, don't blame the people, blame the process, and that sort of attitude around people are the victims of the process. And I'm really psyched because now we get in our interview, Michael Bremer's written about process walks, but for leadership. So I think that will add another level of nuance to this conversation. So I think that'll be great coming up.
I'm Tracy O'Rourke, and you're listening to the Just in Time Cafe podcast. We host these monthly, so you can go to www.jitcafe.com and go to our podcast page.
Coming up next is an interview with our featured guest, Michael Bremer. Tracy, why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about Michael?
I would love to. So Michael Bremer, if you don't know about him yet, he is an improvement leader who's turned everyday walks into powerful leadership practice. He's the Shingo Prize-winning author of How to Do a Gemba Walk and the new Learning to See the Invisible. And I love both of those titles. Today, he coaches executives on meaningful Gemba walks and helps organizations raise their maturity through AME's Excellence Award program. He believes leaders grow when they learn to truly see and listen. Can't wait to talk to Michael at the cafe today.
Yes.
Welcome, Michael, to the cafe. I love your hat.
Thank you.
Yes.
My brand.
It is your brand. I love, and it's a nice hat. Like
great.
Classy. I think there's one photo at least of you, Michael, and me and Tracy, and I think it's like AME Chicago. And I think you got a nice hat on.
I don't know. I just when we started cross country, I never wore hats when I was young. And then Lynn and I started cross country skiing in Wisconsin in like 20 below zero Fahrenheit. And they talked about the importance of wearing hats. And so I wore hats, not this type of hat then, obviously, but and then I just got comfortable. And as the hair became thinner, the hat became, sort of hides that loss in my life.
We should all have such style and purpose in our lives.
So we are so happy that you've joined us at the cafe, Michael, and we've gotten to know you over the years with AME, but I'm just curious, like how I always love to hear the stories of like how people got started. So you've had a long career. So tell us, when and how did you get started in this world of process improvement?
Well, it was kind of crazy. I was working for a Fortune 30 corporation at the time called Beatrice Foods. And the Beatrice at that time was a very well-run organization. And the chairman said he wanted to do something about increasing the organization's rate of productivity improvement. And I was working in the accounting department, actually doing special financial projects. I had an IT and a financial background. I did not have an operations background. But I thought I knew something about productivity improvement, and they said, Michael, why don't you be the director of productivity improvement? I thought, sure, okay. And I had no idea really what I was supposed to do or how to actually go about really improving productivity. And so at that time, I was able to spend time with Dr. W. Edwards Deming, Dr. Joseph Duran, and Crazy Crosby, going to his Quality is Free College down in Winter Park, Florida. And I learned a lot from all three of those individuals. Um, Unfortunately, I couldn't learn everything they were capable of teaching me because I did not have enough pegs in my head to hang all of those knowledge nuggets. But it started me on my kind of my career of understanding. And we created an improvement effort at Beatrice. Beatrice was a global conglomerate. We had 440 entirely separate profit centers all around the globe. Things like Samsonite luggage, Tropicana orange juice, Smith candy in the UK, red tulip mints in Australia. And so I just sort of came up with a general framework of what do you need to do to improve productivity. And we started. It's embarrassing looking back at that framework today, but it got us started and began my learning journey. And then Beatrice sort of went through, I saw a corporation destroy itself through some poor leadership that followed at the corporate level later. And Colbert Kravis came in and purchased the company. And I left. Never, ever in my life did I think about being a consultant. And I started consulting back in the 80s and have done it since.
Wow. That's
Mhm.
I that was great to hear. I had no idea.
Yeah.
And I love that. Very intrepid. You're like, sure, I'll be the head of that. What exactly is that? Which then got you to get out there and figure that out. And access to, amazing humans that
Well,
don't actually have an opinion.
Deming contaminated me in that I could only look at the world through process tinted glasses for the rest of my life.
Nothing
I
wrong there.
I always look at it that way, and sometimes it drives my wife Lynn nuts. But the not that I try to apply any of this at home, but but just when I'll talk about things and the way that it is that I'll approach it is she'll give me that look and say, what planet are you from, young man?
Yeah. Well, my husband often would see something because he's nothing to do with my world, but he gets it. I think he is process minded. And we'd have an issue, and he'd say, come on, Swan, let's Lean Six Sigma the bleep out of this. So you've been deeply involved with AME, and for listeners unfamiliar with that acronym, the Association for Manufacturing Excellence, for many, many years. And with that conference coming up, it's got us sort of curious. You've been involved with the Excellence Award program specifically, and I'm just wondering, what have you learned from visiting high-performing organizations that surprised you the most?
Oh, interesting. The probably several things. The the first is that most leadership teams have really good intentions. I mean, their intentions are honorable. They're good people. That they want to do the right thing. And there's an assumption that they generally make because their intentions are honorable, they're good, that that the impact that is they're going to have is positive.
Mm.
And so I think they operate, and largely they tend to believe that incremental is good because I'm already doing good stuff. And how much more do you want from me? I'm giving it my best. And what I've seen with the organizations that are truly outstanding, a lot of the ones that we recognize, although even there, this gap between my intent and the impact, that there's often the space there. The but the best organizations, the leaders are looking to change their perspective on a regular basis. So they're open. There's a vulnerability that they're willing to show. They're not the answer woman or the answer man. And so they'll go into the organization and they're doing this in a spirit of constantly learning. And I really didn't understand that when I started back in those days at Beatrice and we were putting our effort together. I certainly thought it was more tools focused, and you got to get these tools and use these tools, and good stuff happens because the tools are good. I mean, and good things happen when you're using the tools. But that whole idea of the transformation, I don't think most people appreciate the magnitude of improvement that's there. And the best organizations, they're constantly striving to learn and push it further.
I love that. What you saw was the best leaders were looking to change their perspective. That was their intention.
So it's like a learning and growth mindset, but in companies versus an individual.
Yeah, I've noticed that Dweck that talks about the that growth mindset. Absolutely, Tracy. That they're going in and I think there's a realization that even when they think they know, that they realize that there's often another way. And so if I'm open, maybe there's a real breakthrough thing we can be going after. Maybe I'm going to learn something. And so that coaching that people do isn't just coaching the others to lift them, but you're uplifting yourself. I think at the same time, which is part of the beauty of I was a terrible student when I was in school. I did not understand the process at all. What was going on? I just thought it was a challenge between the teacher and me. But and then when my son was in high school, early high school, he was struggling, and I bought this book called What Good Students Do. And I looked at Lynn and I said, is this what I was supposed to do when I was in school? I had no idea. And so when you get in there and you start to think about this from this process perspective, and that it's an ongoing learning thing that it is we need to do, and encouraging that, it does give you a different mindset, much more positive energy, I think, emanating from you that helps the people around you.
Nice.
Yes.
Nice.
So go ahead, Elizabeth.
Well, I was just going to follow on because we started just thinking about the AME conference, and you're going to be there this year, right?
I will be there. And we're going to have 3 award recipients. We're going to do something a little bit different. I don't think most people understand the value of participating in that Excellence Award process because they think it's about the trophy. And that's really it's the minor part of what it is that's going on. And there was a applicant and a recipient from a couple years ago that had been on the road for 20 years of successful improvement. And what they said after the assessors visited their organization was this is the best feedback they've ever received from anybody on what it is they need to do to elevate what it is that's going on. And so what we're going to do in the conference this year with the 3 award recipients is we'll have a special interest session. So they're not really going to present at all. All 3 of these organizations are doing some really cool things with applying new technologies in their improvement activities and the way they run their business. So there'll be an opportunity, but I'll just have them as a panel. I'll give an opportunity to talk about some of the things that technology has done to change in their business, maybe how they struggled to get it going. And then what I want to focus on is that perspective shift of you participated in this process, you were pretty good at improving. What did you learn? What did you get out of it? What are you doing differently as a result? Because that whole idea, that spirit of AME, of learning, sharing, and growing, there's so many people that I learned from there over the years, that so many people, as you guys have experienced, that are absolutely willing to be open and share. And you can just really then accelerate that growth that's there. And so I'm hoping to connect, and maybe we'll get, 50 to 100 people to sit in on that session. And they'll all walk away with a couple of knowledge nuggets that they can take back to their organization and use, whether they participate in our award application process or not, although I'm hoping it will encourage some people to try it.
Yeah. I'll be happy to check that out, check the sessions out.
We say that in our book too. We talk about getting a certificate, green belt certificate or black belt certificate. And we always say it's not about the, certificate. It's about the journey. And you're saying the same thing. It's not about the trophy, it's about the journey of, how you change, how you transform, what you learn in the process. So I love that.
Mm.
It's a good
And
reminder.
you think about the journey. I like to use that metaphor too as a journey, but this is a journey that never ends. I mean, you got a direction that it is that you're going, but as you get there, I mean, oh my God, the technology is changing so fast today. So the technology is changing, the competition is changing, your customers are changing. Things like COVID happen.
Mm.
The stuff that you thought was good, although I would have argued against this years ago and did in a book I wrote in 2010, that people outsourced all of this stuff, not thinking about quality problems they could have. They assumed that the processes were always going to work and there would be no
Mm.
disruption, so they could bring a boat full of it back. And the short term, those sort of decisions work, but long term, there's some disruptions, and certainly people have experienced that over the last several years, where they're seeing the results of decisions that people made years ago. Those
Mm.
people face no consequences of that. The people now are left to deal with the after effects.
Mm.
Mhm.
Well, Tracy, one of the things she says, if you got an organization, you've got problems. You're just, framing it another way. Like wherever they came from might not be you. People are long gone, but there's problems. So the good
Yeah,
things we've got some structures to deal with that.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
So I'll just ask you a question. So, yeah, I agree with you. The journey never ends. However, sometimes when you are semi-retired or that you're going to retire,
Yeah.
people say, "Okay, does it end there?" And of course, we're always still learning in retirement. But you're coming up. You say you're semi-retired. So tell us a little bit more about that part of your journey.
Well, my wife says that now that I give my time away for free, I'm busier than ever. As you guys commented in some of our email exchange, where is
Yeah.
this in my retirement here? The well, in 2018, our daughter moved to California in 2010 with her husband, and she was pregnant with her first child then, so it killed Lynn that she was going. But we were both working in 2010, and Lynn probably retired in 2015. I started agitating that we should move to California because Katie then had two girls in the San Francisco area. And I kept resisting because I say, well, no, we moved to California, and then our son-in-law takes a job in Raleigh or Austin or God knows where, and we made this move. So I resisted. In 2017, our daughter Kate, we floated this idea, and she was wildly enthusiastic about her coming out here. So the two most important women in my life said, "Get your buns out here." And in 2018, I was really winding down our consulting business with my partner Brian and I. And we did it for 29 years. And so we were not burnt out, but just nearing the end of wanting to do that, wanting to do some other things. And so we made the move. And I've got it. My marriage was an upgrade in my life. I mean, my wife is absolutely outstanding and has helped me to grow in the most positive sense, over the years. And I know she feels the same, in the relationship. But I cannot believe how energized it was for us to come all the way out from Chicago to California and start anew to do all of these things. And we do so much stuff together now. First of all, we needed to explore wine country in California. Um, we learned how to play pickleball, as we've discussed. And
Uh-huh.
then I just started reaching out. The Gemba Walk book that I had written had done very well for a self-published book. And so people were calling me on that. So I was talking about it. And then I love staying involved with AME and the Excellence Awards because I continue to learn from that. And when I go, the assessors that I get to go do an assessment with are phenomenal people. And
Mhm.
so I just keep busy. And I think mostly what I want to do now is, I mean, if somebody, I'll do some very limited consulting, but
Mm.
but mostly I want to touch more people and just help them to elevate what it is they're doing. Hence, doing things like this, conversations with you. I mean, you guys are both so talented, a lot of experience. You too have touched many people in the world, I think, in a very positive way. And so to hang around with folks like you and talk about this stuff, I mean, what could be better?
What could be better? What could be better?
No.
Speaking of which, in our community of people that are constantly challenging our own sort of growth and outlooks, Karen Martin another one of our joint colleagues who's been forging an awesome academy now for many years. And you're about to join the academy, aren't you?
I am. So the Gemba Walk book, How to Do a Gemba Walk, was first published, I think, in 2014. And it was really focused on getting started. So what are the things you need to do? And I tried to focus on a couple levels. And the reason I wrote that is because back then I couldn't find anything to my satisfaction that everybody said, go see, ask questions, show respect. I thought, yeah, but how do you do that? And so I really wanted to put together a how-to. I updated that book recently where I added two new chapters. One, how do we keep these walks fresh and meaningful over time? And then the chapter that Karen was interested in, an outside senior executive leaders walk, what is it that they should be doing? So often when a senior leader goes to visit one of their plants around the world, they'll do a real quick tour to see what's there. They wave. It's very formal. They cleaned up the plant, so it's all scrubbed. And then they go sit in a conference room for whatever and look at a bunch of PowerPoint slides, listen to, what it is that's going on. Again, looking back at what are some of the best practices the senior leaders do, you think about a guy like Larry Culp, who was at Danaher for many years, now at GE. He doesn't go sit in a conference room. He goes into a facility, and then he goes into the facility. He doesn't want them to scrub it. He wants to see it the way that it was, and you try to set up a norm where that happens. Karen got interested in that chapter because there is not really much out there that talks about what is it that a senior executive should be doing. And the tradition certainly is sitting in that conference room. And so the two of us decided we wanted to challenge that. This is fun because I've done this sort of stuff quite a few times, but I've never been in a recording studio where we're putting together a training program. And you guys know Karen. Karen's got she's got standard work for pulling this together and doing it. And I love Karen. I also love that how she's, first of all, grew her consulting practice, and then building the academy has been very impressive. And she's got a lot of really great people. You guys have participated in that. And so the opportunity to work with her to do this just sounded like it would be fun. So we're shooting, I think it's September 29th down in LA. And as you guys have experienced, we're going through all the prep work right now of getting me organized so I don't embarrass myself when I'm down there and we try pulling this together.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to it. And I agree with you. Not a whole lot on senior executive walks. And you mentioned that, they're in a conference room. So just to give people a little more of a teaser, what would you, either a top tip or suggestion, or maybe an observation of this is what you're seeing a lot of senior executives do besides, being in a conference room. What else are you seeing that maybe is, preventing them from being successful? Anything else?
Yeah, can I tell a short story here? Is there space for a short story? Okay. So what inspired this chapter is I was visiting a facility, phenomenal leadership team, a woman senior executive. They had done over the last 3 years everything you need to do to turn around a large 3,000 person organization. Just very, very good. And they said they were going to do a Gemba Walk. And so I thought, oh, well, this will be fun. And I said, why is a Gemba Walk? And they said, well, we want to do the Gemba Walk because we want to show people we care. And I thought, well, this is going to be a fantastic thing to observe. And so they did the walk. And just making the story short, what they really did is they did what I would call more of a safety inspection. They didn't talk to any operators. They were looking for safety things. There was nothing major going on. It was a well-run thing. But they checked to see the last time they were there, the 12 items they found, were they done? And now they got a new list of 12 items. And so two things came from watching that. That's that whole idea that we were talking about earlier of intention versus the actual impact. They thought in their head, because we're focused on safety, people know we care, but that message wasn't communicated. You're doing the safety inspection thing, so those links they thought were happening were not. We talked about, well, what are some metrics you should look at if this indeed were happening, and just the way that it was that they were going in there, they've really got to be, their job is not to find these problems. If they see the problem, what they're supposed to do is say, oh my goodness, what in our process allowed this problem to exist. So they're continually looking at it from a broader perspective. So we take the senior executive that's coming now to visit a plant, and you can sit in the PowerPoint slides, and and I'm not saying you won't learn anything, and you can certainly challenge the team that's there on things they need to do that are better. But to some degree, we're living in a fictional world there where everybody is presenting themselves in their best light.
Mm.
And that's fine, but that's not going to help this thing to transform. It's not really going to capture the possible, that gap, that journey. That the journey could be so much more than what it is that we're doing if we were to do this. And so I think this thing for the senior executive is to get into the operation, and maybe the common theme would be, what is going on here that inhibits the ability of this organization to create value? So do we have some breakthrough goals? What are the people engaged? Are we doing problem solving at all levels? Is the leadership team looking at things from a process perspective rather than the individual bullet point problem? And when you get into the real world of what's really going on, you learn to see things. And a challenge is that most of these leaders don't understand a whole lot about. They don't have a whole lot of depth to highly effective improvement practices. But my hypothesis in belief is that they can learn through asking really good questions. And so if they go through and ask questions, they're going to learn more about effective improvement practices, and they can be elevating, the organization that it is they're working with. A long-winded answer to your question, Tracy, but I'm kind of excited about it.
Clearly,
I love it. Yeah, that's exciting.
it's great too because you're speaking to the other Gemba Walk partner in the TKMG Academy, right? So Tracy did how to run a Gemba Walk, and you're taking it from the executive side, which is really cool. So it's great to have both those windows. And
I saw that Tracy had done the process walk, which I
Uh-huh.
think is a great idea to go through and do the process. And then, you too. And what I heard about you, Elizabeth, and I've not looked at your videos yet, but I'm going to, is that with your theatrical background of improvisation, and I'm an old Second City fan from Chicago, that
Oh,
I want to look at those videos to just see how you manage your hands and what it was that was going on as you were doing this, because I'm not used to standing there in a fixed spot looking at a single camera.
um, man, going into that studio will give you, there's hair and makeup. So I'm immediately thinking, does Michael get to wear his hat? Like I couldn't even wear.
I don't get to wear my hat.
Oh, because I couldn't even wear my
oh,
glasses. I couldn't wear my glasses, and man, I started off with some awesome eyesight, but it's gone. And so they had to make the teleprompter like gigantor for me to be able to read that thing. And and there were definitely many stops. And you have a director there, you got an assistant director, you got Karen, and people will be like, okay, it seems like you're doing a lot with your hands. Like, could you do this with your hands? So the hand thing is a definite you can't be, let's just say you can't be too improvisational with your hands. But
Well,
it's definitely another world.
Karen said you did well.
Um,
yeah. And I'll have a tip as well, which we forgot to do. So when you get in front of the camera and you're talking, it's a little rough at first, right? Because, you're just getting started. And then by the end of the thing, you're feeling pretty comfortable. And so what she told us we would do is, and I don't know if she did this with you, Elizabeth, because we're going to do the beginning over, just because that's what I offer up to people. Because they're way more comfortable by the end. And so I thought that was interesting. But then we ended up not doing it. So I'm like, oh, okay. And she goes, oh, yeah, we forgot to do it. It's okay. You did fine.
Yeah, she didn't do me either. So I'm wondering if it's just, she goes with the flow. And if she feels like, oh, the flow was way different by the end, she'll want to go back and do the
Yeah.
beginning again. But
Yeah,
um,
probably.
Yeah.
it
Well,
is
that'll be
great
a
to
lot
have
of fun.
this. Say it again, Kate, Tracy.
I just said that'll be a lot of fun. Go ahead, Elizabeth.
Yeah, it will. And I just think it is a whole nother process. But there's all those people there, Michael, and their whole intent, their whole focus is making you look good.
Yeah.
So I think that's you got that. It's kind of relaxing in that way.
I did lobby hard for the hat, and it was totally rejected because they were just all worried about the lighting and all that stuff.
Oh, it's
No,
tough.
we'll
It
see.
is tough.
I'm gonna bring my hat with me though. We'll see.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think, maybe they can superimpose it after and just do a little AI, put your nice hat back on. I mean, I swear one of the first comments I got when Karen started airing clips of my course was someone said, I didn't even recognize Elizabeth without her glasses. So people are going to be like, who's that guy? Like,
That's right. Look at that shiny bald head.
Um, oh man, we could go on. This is awesome. This has been really fun. And I am very much looking forward to seeing you at AME, Michael, having had this great conversation. I'll connect up with you, hopefully go and see uh tap into some of the sessions you are going. If and maybe by some chance I get you in my workshop on the Monday before. But either way, it'll be really great to connect up with you and Karen and all the awesome folks there.
And now that I know you're in the Bay Area, I'm gonna have to find you for pickleball.
Where are
Yeah.
you, Tracy? Are you
I'm
here?
in San Diego,
Oh, okay. That's
Mhm.
what I thought you were further south.
but my
Yeah.
son is in San Francisco.
Oh, all right.
He just
Well,
moved
you
there
can come up
for college.
sometime.
Yeah,
Let us know.
I've been up there a
I,
couple
I'm
times. So when
I'm
I get
willing
up
to go
there, I'll
be
look
I'm
you
willing
up.
to go be thrashed by a world-class player.
Do it. Tracy will thrash you, but you'll have a really good time. She is fun to play with. Anything else we didn't tell our listeners that you're dying to let them know, Michael?
Not really. I mean, we talked a lot about the perspective shift within that idea of intent and impact, which has kind of been my area of focus. I guess I close with the more and more understanding the importance of purpose. And so just as you go through and you're doing these things, whether you're working inside the organization, you want to do standard work. What's the purpose for us of doing standard work? Or I want to do a Gemba walk. What's the purpose of doing this Gemba walk? Or even the Hoshin deployment. What's our purpose of doing this Hoshin deployment and catch ball or however it is we're rolling this out, inside the organization? And you can't just have in your head, it's like a goal. I can't just have the goal in my head. I've got to write down what the purpose is of doing this. And you don't need to do it for everything, but think about what are the 5 most important things we're doing relative to improvement for my team, my department, or my organization, and write down the purpose for those things. And then periodically reflect on how well are we fulfilling that purpose? And is that purpose the right purpose? Or as I'm progressing through this journey, do we need to be making a change to it? And I think it's one of the easy ways. If I take the time to write it down and then periodically come back and do an assessment of, is this really being fulfilled the way that I think it would? What would the results be if this purpose, is unfolding the way that I hope that it would? Are they? It gives you an opportunity to sort of self-assess, do some self-improvement, self-check. You can talk to some other people if you feel there's some gaps there. And it's really an easy way to learn and to adjust. And so that building that into what it is that you're doing, I guess would be the nugget that I would try to leave everybody with.
Mhm.
Nice nugget.
I'm
Thank
so
you.
glad you came to visit us today, Michael.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And it's funny just talking with you because I remember seeing you a couple years ago thinking, wow, that guy, he's a big guy, in process improvement. Talking to you, you're just so humble and appreciative of people in your life. And I really appreciate hearing that. And it's just a nice way to semi-retire from our culture and our community. So lovely having you.
Lovely having you, Michael, and stay semi-retired. Stay that way.
Yeah, for you guys too. It's neat to get to know you. I know we've talked at the conferences a couple of times, so to get to know the two of you a little bit better, and we can build on that this year. Tracy, I never think of myself as a big guy. I've always thought of myself as a little guy in this big field. So thank you for that image. But it's just it is humbling, to when you think about all this stuff and I'm still learning, even at this age. It's true, and there's more that we can all learn. I just love being able to hang around with people like the two of you. I recently did an assessment in Brazil, and the team that I was with there. I mean, you're with fantastic people. I was with Maria Elena Stouffer, Alan Coletta, and a guy you probably don't know who used to work at Autoleave named Brian Crowell. And just an absolute fantastic team, bringing their talents to the organization, the site we were visiting, and it's phenomenal. So thank you. I really appreciate you asking me to participate in your program. It's a true honor.
Absolutely. Keep learning, and we'll see you soon.
You bet.
Bye, Michael.
Bye. You guys take care.
Elizabeth and I are gearing up to hit the road for some pretty awesome conferences. October seems to be conference month for this industry.
Oh, yes.
So Elizabeth, you have 2 workshops coming up this fall. The first one is October 1st, the New England Lean Summit in Connecticut. And then you jet to St. Louis on October 6th to hang with Michael Bremer at the AME International Conference. And for both of those, you'll be conducting the new Praise Paradox workshop. So can you give us a little preview of that, Elizabeth?
I can do it, Tracy. I can do it. So the premise is that we all crave recognition, yet we often hesitate to give it. And the paradox is that while, authentic praise energizes and motivates people, us, ourselves included, we don't always see ourselves as the source, right? So you get this cycle of unrecognized efforts. And the reality is that praise, recognition, all that is free, and its impact is priceless, right? So we sort of miss that piece of it. And when employees feel unseen, they are 3 times more likely to quit. And yet on the flip side, when they're valued, engagement, process performance, operational excellence all soar. So in this interactive session, participants explore the science of recognition, and they get to practice simple, actionable strategies to make praise a daily leadership habit that strengthens culture and drives results. Now, as for you, Tracy, I will tell listeners, Tracy's joining a wagon train. Wait, no, she's flying. She'll be in Arlington, Texas in October for the Lean Construction Institute's Congress Conference. She's doing a pre-conference workshop on embracing the leader role in creating ideal conditions and coaching problem solvers. Tracy, can we get a little preview of your workshop?
Yes. So it's definitely geared towards leaders, but really, it could be really anyone that's trying to do process improvement, because I feel like you don't have to wait to be you don't have to wait to be in a leadership role to benefit from a workshop like this. So we really talk about how do we create ideal conditions for problem solvers. That's pretty much the primary responsibility of a leader, is to create those ideal conditions. And so we talk through some of the things to think about, what you can do as a leader to help assess ideal conditions, and then what are you going to do to create a better environment for ideal conditions. And then we're going to talk about coaching problem solvers and some of the very specific things that you can do to coach problem solvers. And it could be techniques like questions to ask, but it can also be just having routines, right? So routines to coach problem solvers as well. And how do you go about doing that? So it's a half-day workshop, and I'm really excited to go to Arlington, Texas. It'll be the 2nd year I'm doing it there. They asked me back to do it again because we actually sold out last year.
Cool.
Yeah.
So
that is Tuesday, October 21st in Arlington, Texas.
All right. Well, I know we're both flying all over, Tracy, so maybe we'll meet in an airport bar somewhere.
Yeah. And then lastly, I would also say that I am doing an in-person Lean Six Sigma Green Belt. I'm teaching at UCSD. It's a public offering, so anyone can join. The dates are on Thursday, starting September 25th. So it goes, for the consecutive Thursdays. So September 25th, October 2nd, October 9th, October 23rd, and October 30th. And then project presentation day is December 11th. So it's always fun. It's, obviously most of our audience knows that we're all about productivity and fun. And so that's what we do with the Green Belt. And we'll include the links, and you can look at more details and register.
Sounds great, Tracy. I am psyched. You are a dynamic in person. Well, actually, you're dynamic whether you're on Zoom or in person, but I think you probably get most of your energy from people right in the same room. So that'll be a great session.
Yeah, thank you. I'm looking forward to it. I always really love the in-person session. So stay tuned for all the news by joining our community at the Just in Time Cafe.
Thanks for joining me and Tracy for yet another episode. You are our favorite thing about the Just in Time Cafe, and we look forward to being your lifelong learning partners.
Join us next month and every month for your jolt of lean caffeine.
Woohoo!